And hey, everybody.
Oh, we didn't get it right. Let's try it again. 1, 2. Hey.
Can we do that?
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whiskey in the 6. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whiskey Rant Podcast.
So I'm a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whiskey Rant Podcast. I'm
everybody.
Hey, everybody.
This is Trey and C.
I'm Trey. It's C.
Jeremy, Rob, Whiskey Rant Podcast.
Where are we right now?
We are in the new bar.
Yeah.
What do you think, man?
I mean, I think it turned out amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks,
I mean,
buddy.
the shelves need some whiskey on them, but
shelves are gonna have some lights and
get
whiskey.
some lights and whiskey. My goodness, this place is gonna be very, very nice. Actually, I brought you a bottle. First bottle to go on the shelf.
This is a surprise.
Okay,
This is
I had
a
to keep this a surprise.
He kept this on the DL until we started filming.
Now, it's not a full bottle, but you'll recognize this one. Remember this guy?
Oh snap!
Remember this one?
I do remember this guy.
This is the Hibiki 17. We made a trade for this right before Hibiki announced that they were dropping all of their age statements, and this bottle went from $500 to $5,000.
Dude, I paid like $150 American for that bottle. And then it just blew up. And you I think messaged me, you're like, hey, did you open that bottle of Hibiki 17? I'm like, yeah. Because it just went to $1,000 overnight.
So we made a trade for this. You remember what I traded you to get how much was left? It was probably about half.
It was up there, yeah.
I got it. I haven't touched it too much, but
I don't remember. Do you remember?
I remember I won the trade, I'm sure.
100%. Well, obviously you won the trade.
But yeah, when was the last time you drank this bad boy?
At least 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
more.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
It's gonna look lovely. I don't have any Japanese whiskey to put on my bar.
There you go. Now you got a little Hibiki 17.
Beautiful.
We'll get into that after the show.
We will.
A sip or two. Tonight's theme, very huge thing happening in the whiskey community right now, led by our esteemed colleagues Roy and Ralfy. Yeah. They started up a freaking whiskey award community event agency. How would you describe it? It's the Online Scotch Whisky Awards.
Yeah.
And it's driven by the community.
For the people, by the people.
Right? For us, by us.
I feel like Bane in this one. I wish I knew the line exactly.
And we give it back to you, the people.
For you, the people.
Right. Yeah, so Roy and Ralfy got this idea that they would assemble some online WhiskeyTube reviewers, have them kind of put some nominations together for some categories. Mostly to do with Scotch whiskey, but some other categories as well.
Yeah.
And all those nominations would be pulled together, refined, narrowed into just 6 bottles for each category, and then it would go out to the whiskey community, and they would have their say and vote on those each year.
Honestly, kudos to Roy and Ralfy for doing this, because that had to have been a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and they put a lot of time into it. They did a great job with the website, with everything. It's very official. They have like a mission statement.
Yeah.
It's very, very legit, and I think that's their goal, is to make this a very legit thing.
Absolutely. They included a lot of the OGs in WhiskeyTube, right? Like they included as many as they could, as many that would agree. I think there was a couple that maybe didn't agree to it.
There's 24 that they settled on.
Mm-hmm.
I know they had more, but I think for a logistics standpoint, as far as collecting all the data back and forth with everyone, they're like 24, and then I think their goal is to obviously expand as years go by, and include more people to nominate.
You have to have some coding knowledge too, like to do everything that Roy did.
I mean, he's put a lot of time into this. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that was really cool, awesome, really well done. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the final results are. We were included in it.
Yeah, we both had our say in the nominations, and we'll go over some of the nominations tonight. Roy and Ralfy went live today, so the time we get this video, it'll be a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But really good live show. Roy had like over 700 people watching it.
Yeah.
Lots of good input through the community. Obviously, when Ralfy comes on, it's a huge event. And their mission, and I think their goal, and I think what's going to happen with this is this could be one of the most reliable whiskey award sources that you're going to find out there. A lot of these whiskey award places, you know, they're pay to play. There's a lot of like politics maybe that go into them here and there.
Yeah.
This one's more focused obviously on the community and nominations of bottles that are mostly available and at a good value price point.
Yeah. I think that's important because it's almost become worthless to read a magazine that ranks whiskey, or who cares what the San Francisco Whiskey Awards are, or like, you know, Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible. Nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, the credibility of those are kind of diminished, right?
Yeah, and to keep with integrity in mind the whole time, to keep each category picked by 24 people. Nobody knows what anybody else is picking. I thought it was really, really well done, and you will get some interesting stuff out there because obviously, depending on where you're from, your access to certain things varies, right? Like, for example, we have a ton of access to like Shelter Point, 2 brewers, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Pretty much nobody else in the world can get that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just like we can't get like balcones, for example. You know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, that doesn't leave the United States. Like it's not in Canada.
It's not in Canada. The UK gets a couple bottles, I think, maybe a little bit of that, but we haven't seen it in stores up here yet. I mean, I'm sure their plan is to expand.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not in Alberta already because there's some things that you wouldn't expect to be there, but again, balcones, which has become really popular, has not made it up this way yet.
Yeah. And Balcones did make some nominations, and we'll get into that. Let's talk about what we got in front of us right now, because we've got a lineup of bottles here.
Yeah, so this actually doesn't belong to this category.
So the Springbank 10 is going to be our value whiskey review tonight, and that's the 2021 bottling. So the newest bottling is Springbank 10.
The one that Serge gave a 91.
Yeah, this one's coming out and getting rave reviews right now. But what we got in front of us is a representation of the nominations for the best single malt whiskey of 2021. Now, we don't have the exact lineup here, but we have more or less the same. So, the nominations, we'll just start at Whiskey of the Year, Scotch Whisky of the Year, and we'll work our way backwards with the other nominations.
Sure.
So, Aaron 10-year-old was nominated, and representing that, we have the Aaron 18.
Right here, yeah.
So, Aaron 10-year-old, I think I've had it before a couple times. I don't have a bottle of it. Well, obviously, we don't have a bottle, but Aaron 18, I think, is where we land on probably the best of the range. Yeah, I mean,
like we kind of skipped the 10, went straight to the 18 because of the value. Like this was like $120, I want to say.
It was $120 Canadian for the
Canadian,
18,
which was absurdly well priced. So we skipped the 10. Not any knock on the 10, but I just have no experience with it.
Right.
Now I'm curious. I want to actually go buy a bottle, but.
So the 10 was nominated. Mm-hmm. Next up was the Glen Scotia Victoriana, and we're both very familiar with this one. Excellent whiskey coming out. A no age statement, which was the only one I believe that made the list.
You know what? There's a lot of like rage about this bottle.
There's a very close knit like fan following with this bottle. Like people love this. It's very like kind of low key.
And we're not talking just Campbelltown fans. We're talking like, I know bourbon guys that went crazy for this stuff, and I'm like, really? Like, I like it, it's good, but I just can't figure it out. Like, what's the rage?
I think it's an example of a whiskey that tastes young, but is like amazing when it is that young.
Yeah,
you know, like it has a lot of youthful characteristics,
Absolutely.
but it just seems to balance with the rest of the notes on there.
Mm-hmm.
Presented a cask strength, non-chill filtered, no out of color, of course. So moving on from that, we had the Glenallachie 10-year-old cask strength. So we got that. That's what do we got? Batch 3.
That's batch 3. I do have batch 5 somewhere. I didn't want to dig it up.
Yeah. So this nomination wasn't necessarily any one batch, but just the general Glenallachie 10-year-old. And a surprise to this list, to me anyway, was the Lefroy 10-year-old sherry cask.
Yeah, that's this bad boy right here. I really liked it. I actually really enjoyed it. I think that was like pretty fair in price too. 48%. It was surprising. It's not your typical Lafroig.
It's a great Lafroig, and I think they did a good job with the sherry finish on it. I think I scored it a very moderate mid 80, I think, around there. I don't know if I was 86 or something on it, or 87. Really good. Yeah. For sure, really good. Definitely worthwhile picking up if you're a fan of Lafroig. Is it making a top 6 nomination for me? No, I don't think it is.
I don't think so either. I think I gave it a high 80. I can't remember exactly. Maybe 88, 89. So in that score range, like, I would buy it again, and obviously I did. I have one going, and that's why this one isn't cracked yet. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of their better expressions in the last little while. I'm very curious to see what the new PX Carchis is going to be like.
Yes, that would be very interesting to try, and can't wait for that one to come out. Next up in the nomination was Longrow 18, which was very, very surprising to me again that this one made the nomination. Yeah,
for me, Longrow 18 is good, but it's definitely not their best product.
Yeah.
I think the Springbank 18 of recent has been better.
I would take that.
Right? But again, they're so like... which one are we talking about? That's the big issue with what I find.
There's batch variation with these.
There's big time batch variation.
So we got a 17 single cask representing here because we don't have the 18. I've never been a huge Longrow fanboy. I do like the Longrow Red series.
The Reds, yeah.
Those have been good to really good for the most part, and pretty well priced. We've been able to find those at retail. Not so much this year. It's been a little more difficult, but previous years we had no issue getting those bottles.
This year it got hard.
Yeah. That was kind of interesting to me that one made the nomination list as well. And then finally rounding it out, a whiskey that we're both fairly familiar with, the Talisker 18-year-old. Absolutely love it. I think it's a great bottle. Again, would it find its way on my top 6? No, it wouldn't. But I don't think there's any issue with it being on there.
Yeah, I'm gunning for. Am I allowed to say this? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because then I kind of reveal what I picked out of these.
I think we can talk about what we picked. I mean, this is open to every single person. If you want to go on to oswa.co.uk, you can vote for all of these categories and have your input to what you think is the best of these nominated whiskeys.
I know, but I'm afraid to sway people. I don't want to sway people.
You think you have that much influence over them?
No, I don't. I just don't want to like.
I think people know what you're going to pick anyway. I mean, I know what I voted for out of these.
Yeah,
you're probably the same.
I think we probably voted for the same thing.
I think actually, you know what? I nominated something different out of this. Okay. I nominated the Glenallachie 12-year-old.
Okay.
Because in my opinion, it's way more readily available than this 10 cask strength.
Right.
I think the cask strength is better.
Right.
But as far as availability is concerned,
that's a great point.
Yeah. So I nominated the Glenallachie 12.
Yeah, I nominated this, which was the batch 5.
Okay.
But I think we weren't allowed to vote for our own nomination.
Yeah, so the way it worked is that all 28 forward channels nominated, they narrowed it down, and then they re-voted essentially, right?
So when I re-voted, I voted for the Glenallachie 12. And then, I don't know what happened after that.
Too many people were into the Glenallachie 10.
Yeah, either that or there was 2 slots available. And if there was 2 slots available for the Glenallachie 10, then you were allowed to vote for your own pick. Yeah. I think that's how it worked. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have our year-end whiskeys of the years.
Yeah.
And you'll probably see that Glenallachie 10 pop up on both of our channels for a mention at some point. But yeah, kind of an interesting nomination list, I think.
What this does is relieves a little bit of pressure on me when I make my list, because this list is like I said, it's meant for the people. It's meant for the for everybody. Everybody should have relatively what's the word? Like less trouble picking up these bottles. The ones that are actually available on that list, not these ones in particular, because like I said, this is, like you said, this is a 17-year-old, you're not going to find that.
Right.
But the ones that are on the list, you should be able to find. They're readily available in most countries. it relieves pressure on me when I make my list because I'm always thinking about that. I want to help people go after stuff that I know they can get. The problem is then I'm not being true to what scored very well on my channel.
Right.
And that's kind of how I started my channel is, no, these were the best 6 whiskeys I tried this year.
Yeah.
And whatever, right? And then I adapted that and I made like their cost like, so basically I can't pick anything over $500. Like,
sure.
I made that rule 2 years ago and I stuck with that. And I'm probably still gonna stick with that rule, maybe that being my only rule, and I'll probably pick single cask this year because there were some really great things that we tried, like that La Jag from Valentin Mallet was, you remember that one?
Yeah, I will never forget that because it was very unique whiskey for sure.
It was insane. So I mean, I know people are not gonna be able to get stuff like that, but like having this on the go and being part of this makes me feel like I can be a little bit more at ease when I make my own list.
Sure. Yeah, I think the way I go about it is like I'll mention the best whiskeys I tried, the best whiskeys that I had from that year. But my quote unquote whiskey of the year is going to be something that you should be able to find if you are searching.
Yeah. And that's a fair way to do it, definitely, right?
Yeah.
When the so you guys can't see it because it's off camera here, and I don't know if the mic's gonna actually pick up the background noise over here, but
It might, man.
pick up a little bit. There's gonna be a fish tank covering that, so we won't get that noise when this is all finished.
But let's talk about another category, which was the first category, which is the best entry-level single malt Scotch whiskey. So the nominees for this. So this one was difficult for me because they had a price point of £35, which in our area, you're looking at about a handful of whiskeys that are even close to that price point.
Yeah.
So the nominations were Ardbeg 10-year-old, Arran 10-year-old, Bunnahabhain 12, Deanston 12, Glencadam 10, and Highland Park 12-year-old.
Yeah. See, 2 of the whiskeys on this list I would have picked if I had reviewed them this year. I misunderstood this category. I thought it was something that I had to have had this year.
Right.
So I chose something else. But then obviously when we went through the second round and this was what was available, obviously, I voted on what I probably would have picked to begin with.
The £35 price point only applies because they put the prices on here,
Right.
like approximate value of a UK bottling, how much it would cost.
Yeah.
None of these are under 35 except for the Highland Park 12, they have at 32, and the Glencadam at 34. Everything else is above 35 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's why it was really hard for me. I'm like, okay, well, there's almost nothing at 35 pounds that I can pick here. I ended up going with the Deanston 12 because I saw it on a website for 34 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the Deanston 12, that's one that makes the list. But yeah, I mean, I would rather probably have Bunna 12 or even Ardbeg 10.
Yeah, I mean, because I was always so in love with Highland Park 12, it would be hard for me to like ignore that one because I think that's like at that price point one of the best whiskeys you can buy, especially if you're buying at that price point, unless it's like an everyday sipper. If you're trying something new at that price point, that's probably the best entry level whiskey in the Scotch category, I think, because it's 43%, it's got nice sweetness, 0 burn, all the things that I think would really help someone get into the category. You know what I mean?
So if you're giving this to a first-time whiskey drinker, I would not give them Ardbeg 10 at all.
You can't.
The Glencadam, I think, is probably maybe too complex and the profile's a little bit different.
It's a little bit more experienced.
Yeah, I would think so.
I would think so too.
Even the Bunna 12, I mean, a beginner can try that, but it's a more complex whiskey.
Yeah.
Highland Park 12 is great for a beginner. The Deanston 12 is fine for a beginner.
Yeah, I agree.
The Arran 10 is fine. But yeah, I would not give a beginner Ardbeg 10.
No, it would be too. I mean, if we're talking best on that list, I'm thinking Ardbeg 10. Right. But again, we weren't going by. It's hard. Well, Ardbeg 10 is $100 here. You know what I mean? So it's like that's like almost 60 pounds.
Right.
Right. So it's not.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it was a category that we struggled with because prices are so expensive in our area that it was weird to pick a 35-pound whiskey.
Yeah.
Moving on to another category, best blended Scotch or blended malt. This one was interesting because the nominations saw 3 from Compass Box come forward. The Flaming Heart, which I'm like, that's a very expensive, hard to find whiskey.
Yeah.
The Spice Tree, which is another one that's not as expensive, but not always available.
Right.
My nomination came up here, which was the Compass Box Peat Monster. That's the one that I chose to be nominated.
Yeah. See, again, I chose based on what I've reviewed this year, which caused me to choose the Johnny Walker Celebratory Blend, which is like 52% or whatever. I really like that, but I like the Johnny Walker Green. If I'm gonna pick in this category, I'm probably picking that.
So Johnny Walker Green was nominated. It's on the list. Followed that by the Douglas Lang Scallywag Blended Malt and the Cuddy Sherrick Prohibition Edition, which is the cheapest of the bunch. So Compass Box Flaming Heart, they have coming in at 125 British pounds, which doesn't really follow necessarily the value, although you could argue that that's good value for that price. There was no price category limit on this category per se, but I think the Compass Box Peat Monster is a great blended malt. I think consistent.
Compass Box does a great job. My issue with Compass Box is it's become almost like a cult-like following.
Yeah.
And because of that, the prices are substantially high. And I think the problem with that is you compare it to a company that's also a cult following, like Springbank.
Yeah.
And they never increase their prices to a point where they're unreasonable. You know what I mean? Like Springbank 10, we're buying for $90 Canadian. The 12 is $100 Canadian. You know what I mean? Like we're getting Springbank still at an incredible price, and you put that side by side with Compass Box. Yeah, Compass Box is great, but they keep jacking up their prices.
Yeah, and I think this category kind of tells you what people are drinking. Mm-hmm. With 3 Compass Box out there for blended, you know that people aren't buying that much blended malt, blended Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
People are drinking Compass Box because it's arguably
it's almost a single malt.
You're right. It's arguably
the
best blended Scotch you're gonna get.
Yeah, there's there are some Compass Boxes that are grain. They're grain whiskeys as well, right? There's grain whiskey blended in.
The hedonism.
Yeah, there's a few.
That's on a category as well. But yeah, I think it's how many whiskey tubers are out there buying Chivas Regal or buying J&B or any of the other blended? No one's buying that stuff. No. That's a whiskey tuber that's nominating these whiskeys.
I haven't purchased a blended whiskey other than a Johnny Walker or a Compass Box in a very long time. And even Johnny Walker is very limited for me. It's like if they have something over 46%, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Or the green, because it's just a good staple to have on the bar.
The green is great because it's available, it's affordable, it's bottled at 43, but a little bit higher than the rest of the range, right. And it's a blended malt.
And it's 15 years old. It's got an age statement, so and it tells you all the distilleries that are blended into it.
So it's good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Distillery, Best Distillery 2021. So the nominations were Arran, Brooklady, Bunnahabhain, Deanston, Glenallachie, and Springbank. Mm-hmm. What's missing?
What's missing? I think it's unfair because nobody's picking Kavlon, nobody's picking Amrut, nobody's picking like a Two Brewers or a Shelter Point. And I'm not saying that they deserve to be picked. I'm just saying it's tough. It's logistically impossible.
What's missing in the Scotch whiskey category for me?
Oh, okay.
Because this is Scotch whiskey focused. There are lots of categories that will include stuff that's not Scotch whiskey, but this I'm sure was Scotch whiskey focused.
The problem is what's missing in 2021 is not very much. If you're talking 5 years ago, there are distilleries missing.
Yeah.
But what Highland Park's done in the last 2 years, last year, let's just take, is not good. It's not good. And Macallan, worse. You know what I mean? You go through like...
I guarantee you no one wrote down Macallan for this palate.
Nobody's going to write that down. Like, it's just, they're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Lefroy has done a really good job in the last couple of years of like putting out some cool stuff like this Sherry 10-year-old. Their cask strength is amazing every year.
Cartridge line.
The cartridge line is usually really good.
Yeah.
You know, so they could have been involved. Ardbeg, again, hit or miss. Like, they have some really good core expressions, but outside of that,
I think for me, Ardbeg's never going to make this list because of their limited releases that are coming out. They're just absurd and overpriced.
Like, Highland Park, not to beat a dead horse, but they had an opportunity to. They came out with a cask strength, which is great. It was actually pretty good. But they could have put an age statement on it. They could have called it 5 years old, and everybody still would have bought it.
Yeah.
All the same people still would have bought it, and probably paid a lot of money for it. Maybe more, because it had like a 5-year-old age statement on it. And it's probably not even close to 5 years old. It's probably much older than that. But they didn't do that. You got a guy like Glenallachie who's banging it out of the park all the time. You can't compete. Like, what were the guys on the list again? Springbank, Glenallachie,
Deanston, Bunnahabhain, Brooke Laddie, and Aaron. What about Kilkerran?
Kilkerran, but they're technically Springbank, right? So I guess that kind of, it's like the umbrella.
Are you including that in Springbank?
I wouldn't, but the problem is, like, where do you draw the line then? Like, do you say Longrow, or I know they're actually separate like facilities, but they're all the same company within like walking distance.
It's a different distillery.
Yeah, they're separate facilities.
A lot of people in the chat were yelling for Kilchoman to be included.
I like Kilchoman. I don't think it's on that list though.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't think I would take that over Deanston. I think Deanston is probably the most overhyped distillery in the last 5 years.
They've turned a corner, I think, for the worse now.
I think so. Them, Bunnahabhain's done the same, and it's owned by the same company, and they're both on there, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, then absolutely Kilkerran should have been on there,
right,
because they're better than both of those guys, in my opinion. I mean, Bunnahabhain has gone worse. Deanston has gone worse. Yes, they have a great 12-year-old, and the Virgin Oak is what it is. It's good for the price. But aside from that, their 18-year-old is good, but nobody's buying those things. They're buying their special releases that are all just subpar.
A lot of people in the chat were a little upset that Springbank made the list because of the availability of it.
The problem is you can't deny the quality. So what do? It's like we're not gonna say that Connor McDavid is the best player in the NHL because he's only playing for one team and nobody will ever get to play. Nobody will ever get to have him on the team. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I get it.
You go by the stats.
Yeah.
These guys are banging it out of the park all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I get it too. I mean, I guess like the general theme of these were, availability, but it depends where you are. Like, this stuff is relative. Like, if you go into the US, you can find Springbank in a lot of states.
Yeah.
You go to California, you can find Springbank everywhere.
Go to Massachusetts, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And we're talking like old Springbank too. We're not just talking new Springbank. We're talking like stuff from the 90s. It's like still sitting on shelves.
See, the thing about that is like any person could throw out, oh, that's not available in my area. That's not available in my area. It's everywhere, right? You're not going to get every single thing in your area at all times.
No.
Some places are better than others, and some places are freaking terrible.
And I know it's not easy for everybody to source from other places.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't even be able to have a whiskey tube channel. We wouldn't be able to have a whiskey channel on YouTube if we stuck to what's available in our area.
We go through leaps and bounds to bring in whiskey that is not available here, and we just do it because we're passionate about it, and we make things happen. We could not sustain a channel
from the LCBO.
There's nothing good there right now. I would go into the LCBO and buy nothing right now. There probably wouldn't be a single bottle I would want.
The only store that I frequent, that I walk into and buy nothing and walk out, is the LCBO. That is literally the only store.
How hard is that from a whiskey lover that you go into a whiskey shop and be like, there's nothing here I want?
No, like, there's no, like, think about it. Grocery store, you're buying something every time you go, right? A clothing store, at least 7 out of 10 times, you're probably buying something every time you go because you go for a purpose. You want to buy something, and you know.
Yeah.
The LCBO, I would say 1 out of every 20 visits, I actually buy a whiskey. Yeah. 1 out of every 20, if that. And I think that's actually an exaggeration. I literally only go to the LCBO now for beer and wine. Yeah. That's it. Because it's not worth my time.
No. And I mean, you can look up what they have. You don't need to like, there's no like shocker, like, oh, this is here.
Yeah.
You can find it, it's all their inventory online.
It's trash.
So guys, go on to oswa.co.uk, vote for yourself, have your voice heard. There is a People's Choice category, I believe, where you can put in whatever you want. If you think that we as a YouTube community have destroyed this nominations and there's something on there that you think should be on there, then have your voice heard and put that in there as well.
I'm really happy that Glenallachie 10 Batch 5 made the list, because I've been like yelling and the fact that they're finally getting the recognition, it's scary, but it's also awesome because, like you said, the 12-year-old is readily available.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the 15-year-old is readily available, and it's amazing as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool. It's cool to see.
So Roy and Ralfy went live. That video is up on Roy's channel. Go check that video out. Really good insight into exactly how much time those two men have put into doing this. And we think it's going to be probably the go-to source for whiskey awards in the near future, for sure.
I feel like Roy never rests. Like I honestly think he does not sleep. That guy.
He puts a lot of time into this.
Because he's got kids, a family. He works constantly, and then he does his VPub, which is every Thursday.
A lot of prep for sure.
And he preps the crap out of that thing.
Yeah.
Right. So like we're talking like this guy puts eons of time, and people are complaining that he's not putting out like enough.
Where's the next recycled review?
Like, poor guy. Like, how often do you get through?
It's like, guys, I'm trying to get down 14 bottles of whiskey here.
These guys are gonna give this guy a drinking problem just to like. Honestly, Roy's the man. I really appreciate what he does, and even Ralfy. Like, for him to be doing this, how many years now? It's gotta be close to 10 years.
He's on his 11th year.
Is it 11th year?
Well, he's done 10 full years, and now I think he's on, or it's 10 or 11. Yeah.
Yeah, because
10th or 11th.
I remember watching him from when I started drinking whiskey.
Yeah, I remember watching him before he was in his bothy.
Yeah.
Right from the very beginning.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, man, now he's at what? Almost 200,000 subs?
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. OG.
Yeah.
So go check out that video that they have there on Roy's channel. It's very good and very insightful. Let's talk about what whiskey we're drinking tonight. This is our value whiskey. It's the Springbank 10-year-old, the 2021 release. This could have easily made a category.
Yeah, I'm surprised
for Scotch whiskey of the year.
I'm surprised it didn't.
I think maybe just because not enough people have tried this one yet, and maybe a little bit late rollout. Like, we just saw this in our area.
It's true. It just came out in Alberta probably like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. Whiskey Fun just put out a review of that like a month ago, maybe not even that long. Whiskey Hound just did a review.
He gave it a good mark.
He gave it a huge score.
So that's okay. So I was thinking it was Ralfy, but it was Whiskey Hound, and it was Surge. And they both, like, I don't remember what Whiskey Hound's mark was, but I think it was like up there.
I don't think he scores, but he was saying that he was really enjoying this one. The 2019 Springbank 10 was my whiskey of the year. This one has more sherry in it. I'm convinced of it.
I do pick up sherry. I do pick up a bit of the like a sulfury note as well, which is fine. Like, it kind of mixes in with the Springbank like funk.
This has more funk than I remember.
Yeah, it definitely has a funk. Like, it has like all the things that people love about Springbank. That farmy note, like very farmy, but it's super sweet as well. It's got all kinds of cool stuff going on. I like that.
It's got great vanillas. It's got that like salty characteristic. You know, it's got that like wet rocks
Yep.
kind of vibe to it. That minerality. It's got a lot going on, and there's sherry notes. The sherry notes more distinct. Does the color look a little bit darker to you? It does look darker to me.
Might be a touch darker.
Just maybe a shade darker. We'd have to do like a side by side to really compare it, but maybe it's a tad darker. I definitely pick up more sherry notes. I'm getting those like chocolate kind of like red fruit aspect to it.
It's one of those whiskeys I buy. I've been buying every year since probably 2018, and I don't know. I do notice a little bit of a difference, but it's just, you know, it's pretty consistent and fantastic all the time. So it's hard for me to say that this is so much better than like 2020 or 2019. Like I love them all. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think this one for me, like just after the first couple sips, it's got more sherry influence and more of that peaty funkiness, in my opinion.
yeah, there's definitely more funk in this one for sure.
Yeah.
So if that's your thing, then you're gonna love this one.
To what's happening in the secondary market in Ontario. I think actually was our very first whiskey rant talking about Waddington's auction here in Ontario.
I think we did.
That might have been our very first one.
I think we did.
Waddington's auction is back, and prices are getting.
It's absurd.
So we have a bit of a theory about what's happening with this, because these are the most expensive prices I've ever seen anywhere in the world for these whiskeys. They're way above any other auction place, any other secondary market.
Yep.
So we're talking in Canadian dollars. So right now, the Canadian dollar is worth about 80 US cents,
right,
give or take. Let's say that 80 cents US.
Yeah.
Just for a point of reference. Of course, you got your stupid bourbons up there.
Yeah.
Pappy Van Winkle 20-year-old. What do you think a Pappy Van Winkle 20-year-old is going for in the Waddington's auction?
So you gave me a little spoiler the other day, but Pappy Van Winkle 20-year-old what, like normally goes for like $2,500?
Yeah, about like 2,000 US dollars or so.
Okay, so yeah,
that.
so like roughly $2,600 Canadian ish. I know it's much more than that.
Yeah, $4,250.
that is absurd.
Insane.
Even after
that
hammer,
is insane.
Like, can we calculate like what's the hammer on
yeah, so just so you guys know, I think Waddington's auction charges the seller 20% and the buyer 20%. So this $4,250, you have to add an additional 20% commission on that. Absolutely insane price.
But who would pay that? That's the question. Who's paying that?
That is a good question.
I think it's gotta be hedge fund like investors.
Yeah, so you want to give your theory about what is really happening with this Waddington's auction?
So it seems like based on what's selling and for how much, that there is a certain like there's only one way to do this legally in Ontario, and that's through Waddington's pretty much. Yeah. So these guys that are big hedge fund investors, talking millions and millions of dollars just for like goods, like they want to invest in goods that are increasing in value. So you're talking whiskey, you're talking watches, you're talking like all that kind of stuff. They probably have a certain budget and they don't care. They know that in X amount of years it's going to go up a substantial enough. It's a, you know what I mean? They can launder their money a little bit.
Is it? Yeah, you think it's some kind of way of like moving money around for these guys? Because
they wash their money.
These prices don't make sense. Like here is the Van Winkle collection. So the Old Rips, 10, 12, the 3 Pappies, and the Rye. $15,000 for the lot. 15 grand.
If the person that bought all that at retail, like literally just put their kid through 2 years of college or university.
So we all know Pappy and stuff is stupid and goes for stupid money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some regular old bottles that you would never guess would go to auction and go for these prices. So the new Macallan Edition 6, right? It was on the shelf of the LCBO not too long ago, $190. $180,
$185,
$185, something
whatever.
like that.
Waddington what would you pay? No, before that. What would you pay for that bottle?
$125.
$125. So you wouldn't even pay the retail price on that bottle?
No.
Okay.
No, I would not.
I would pay retail. I would pay not a dime over $185.
Yeah, I think it's way too much at that price.
It's not good.
For the edition 2, I would pay $200.
I would pay $250 for the edition 2.
I think the edition 2, I know it goes for crazy in the secondary.
I went through like 3 or 4 bottles of the edition 2. It was fantastic.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
It is really good. It's a really good Macallan.
I used to love it.
So this edition 6 that you could literally buy at the LCBO like 3 months ago for $185 is now $650. How is that happening? Here's a bottle that you can buy on the shelf today if you wanted to. You go right up and freaking buy this thing if you wanted. It's the Macallan 18-year-old. Let me just pull it up. What do you think it went for? This is the Macallan 18 Sherry Oak. Readily available. Lots of places you can get this thing.
Macallan 18-year-old.
Macallan 18-year-old.
It's already almost 500 retail in Canada.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, this price isn't so bad then.
Okay.
It's only $650.
All right, but still, why are you paying secondary on a stupid Macallan 18-year-old that you can buy for?
Right? Why are you bothering doing that? Except if you want to move some money around.
Yeah, you gotta wash that money.
Here's a bottle that we all picked up multiples of. It came out, Jim Murray named this thing Whiskey of the Year. The Alberta Brewing Cask Strength Rye, 240 Canadian dollars. So this one's a $60 bottle.
240 Canadian.
You know what they had for the estimate for this? They have a little estimate. The estimate was between 300 and 500.
Which I've actually heard it go for that much. No, from retail stores, they've sold it for that much.
You used to have a Alberta Premium 30-year-old, didn't you? Mm-hmm. $550 for that. $50.
That was $50 Canadian.
There you go. Yeah.
I remember because my brothers and I bought like a case of them. We bought we're like, this is 30 years old and it's $50. Like something doesn't add up here. Doesn't make sense.
Going back to Hibiki, Hibiki 12-year-old. So this bottle used to be around $100.
This is a bottle that I've been wanting to get from I don't even know how long. I've always wanted the 12. I couldn't find it.
They had it at the LCBO before the Harmony came out, the no age statement. They had this one.
We're talking a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
So when I bought this bottle, the guy had a 12-year-old, and he didn't want to let it go. Mm-hmm. It was less value-wise, but he didn't want to sell it to me. He sold this one to me for, like I said, 150 American. That guy's kicking himself even more than I am for opening it at 150 Canadian.
$850 for the 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Right.
That's stupid. It's not that good. It can't be that good. It can't be that good.
Let's get into some Canadian whiskey, because we're both going to be kicking ourselves in the pants now. Canadian Club, blended 40-year-old whiskey. And
I checked and I don't have that bottle anymore.
I sold mine to someone in the U.S. a while ago for $250 US. Yeah. You want to know what Waddington's current or final bid price was?
Nope.
$1,100. $1,100 for the CC 40-year-old, which we paid retail. What was it? $200. $200.
Wow.
So yeah, that went up 5.5 times.
$1,100.
Yeah. You want to know a bottle that I think is a U.S. exclusive? The Crown Royal cask number 16. Did you ever try that one?
No, that's available. That was available here.
Oh, it was available here.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a U.S. exclusive.
No.
Okay.
I went through 2 of those.
Yeah.
This is when I was a Canadian whiskey guy only.
Right.
And I had a couple backups, and then I think I gifted one to my brother, Mike, who still has one.
Okay. $700.
That's pretty good
for that.
That was $100 though. Even was then, that was $100.
I thought that was a $40 bottle.
No, that was $100 back then. So that's a lot. If you think about it, we're talking 15 years ago. That was $100.
Yeah,
that's a lot for them.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, that one's not too crazy. There were a couple of bottles that I thought were relatively good, like the steal of the auction.
Yeah.
So there's a couple Broras done by Rare Malts. A 24-year-old Brora. So this one would have been 24 years old. This would have been a 1977 distillate.
Yeah.
Am I right about that? I'll double check. So I think it's a 1977 distillate, 24-year-old Brora, $1,200.
I'd buy that.
Okay, $1,200.
I would buy
if you're
that.
looking at Brora prices nowadays, if you want something, that's 30 years old, you're looking at double that.
I think we need to pay close attention to what's going on in Brora in the Waddington auction from now on.
I mean, still very, very expensive. But when you compare it to other Waddington stuff,
Yeah.
Now here's one that went a little crazy. So maybe this one is better reviewed. So this is another Rare Malts Brora, 21 years old this time. $2,250 for this one. So this one went a little crazy.
Okay.
It had nine bids on it. So maybe this is I don't know about the reviews on this. Maybe this one reviews better than the 24-year-old.
Can you put a minimum down on like these if you ever sell?
Yes, there were some lots that didn't meet the reserve.
What
that
happens?
didn't sell.
What happens if they don't sell? Do you have to still pay the hammer?
I hope not. I don't know. No, I don't think so.
That would
I think
be
if they don't
absurd.
sell, then you don't get it. But yeah, like Waddington's the only legal way to do whiskey auctions in this province, and no one who knows current market value would be bidding on this stuff,
I don't think anybody's buying on those.
because you can get it. And it can't be the restaurants, because there's no way that these restaurants in COVID time are spending this much money on whiskey.
Yeah,
Because there's no way they're going to be able to sell these drams at their restaurant.
No.
Who's going in there and spending, $900 for an ounce of Happy Van Winkle?
The thing is, like, we've talked about this before. It's rare to find someone with the kind of money that doesn't care to pay $1,000 a dram on a whiskey. That knows, like, what the real value at $1,000 a dram is.
Yeah.
So, like, what I mean by that is, they're picking the Macallan M and they're saying, okay, I'll have a shot of that for $1,000 instead of the Springbank 40-year-old that's dusty as hell right beside it for $1,500 a dram. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's rare to find guys with that kind of money that know exactly what to look for on a bar. That's generalizing, obviously. There are some guys that like know their shit and have a lot of money, but usually we're catering to suits when you talk like that kind of money, and
Sure.
generally they're drinking Macallan.
Yeah. Speaking about Macallan, I'll give you one more just to rub the salt in the wound, because we both had a couple of these bottles that we've already sold. The Macallan Edition 1, the hardest one to find in the edition range, the one that everyone is searching for. Waddington's auction price, $3,250 for this bottle. Not crazy over like secondary, about like $1,000 too high, but
Yeah.
still.
But I feel like if you factor in the hammer, the guy's only walking away with like $2,000. So he made
Yeah.
less than you made.
Well, I mean, you got 20% on 3,200 is not that much, but
But it's 20% times 2.
no. If you're the seller, you pay 20%. If you're the buyer, you pay 20%. Waddington's
Oh,
getting
so
40%.
the seller pays on top of that price.
Oh, yeah.
Not deducted from that price.
Yeah, so whoever's
That makes
selling
sense.
that will have to give 20% of whatever they
Right.
made
So
to
then now, yeah, because
and then the buyer pays.
that's just
another
terrible math on
20%.
my part, because that would mean that the buyer paid 40%. Yeah.
Waddington's gets 40% total. And I mean, they clean up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They clean up hard. So yeah, it's definitely not restaurants buying this. It's either
Can't be.
people with too much money that don't give a shit,
Yeah.
or there's something going on. There's something going on with people trying to move money around and hold on to these things, and who knows what the fuck they do with them after.
Yeah. Like I wonder if like there's a little bit of like insider trading going on here too. Like
Something shady.
Let's try to like.
Something
I
shady.
have a case of Macallan Edition 1. I'm gonna throw one on auction. You're gonna pay X amount of dollars and watch the rest of these bottles skyrocket in price because.
I mean, I don't know, because is anyone in the whiskey community outside of Ontario looking at this stupid auction house and be like, that's the market price from now on?
No one.
Of course not, right?
No.
It's like it's done by UK auctions, like the big auction house.
Absolutely,
Is going to set the tone.
yeah. And believe it or not, like Facebook is like setting a lot of the standard for
Yeah,
what
because
like,
those things move every single day on private secondary groups, and that's what really sets the tone for the market value.
Yeah.
Not the once a month auctions, like or once every quarter or whatever, however often they do Waddingtons. But
yeah, I'm
same.
so glad I stopped buying from all those Facebook sites.
Man, I still make my rounds.
You know what? It's just so much wasted money gone. Just buy retail
If you can,
if you can.
and if you want stuff that's no longer available at retail, where else are you gonna go?
You're gonna pay somehow. You pay either with money or you pay with time.
Let's talk about the Springbank 10.
Yeah.
What's the score you're gonna give this thing?
I've been teetering all night between like 88, 89, 90. 88, 89, 90. I'm gonna stick with my 89.
Okay. So I believe I scored the 2019. It's my whiskey of the year. I think that was an 88.5.
Okay.
I'm going to tick this up a half tick. I think this is a very solid 89. I mean, it's an exceptional whiskey for
It's
10
excellent.
years old. For the complexity that this thing's putting out right now,
$93 Canadian all in. That's including shipping, taxes, whatever else.
I mean, we're fortunate that we can land a couple of these. It's getting harder and harder. A lot of people are less fortunate in their area. They never see a Springbank.
Right.
But if you can find a way, order it online, ship it to a buddy in a state that accepts it, have him reship it to you.
Yep.
You know, you gotta go through hoops to get what you want sometimes. If you
Yeah.
gotta put the work in.
Like I said, you gotta either pay in time or money.
I
One or the
mean,
other.
remember when we got those teapot drams?
Yeah.
I got a guy in the UK, ordered it online, shipped it to his house. He shipped it to the US, and I went over to the US and pulled it back to Canada. That was a freaking trip around the world to
Yeah.
get those whiskeys.
Like the dollar value doesn't actually explain how much those bottles actually cost.
Sure.
Because like
Time,
I said, like the amount
energy,
of time, energy,
risk.
Yeah.
Of course, it all
It's
goes
crazy.
into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a solid 89. I mean, I think maybe we could bump it up a mark if we're.
I think the more, I mean, I'm going to review this, of course, and I'll
Yeah.
take my time with it and go through it on multiple tastings, and who knows where this thing could open up and get to, once it's got some time in the bottle.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it could easily score a 90 or above. I'm not disagreeing with anybody's mark, but that's a great mark. 89 is a great mark. so-
Absolutely. Huge,
especially
huge
for
score.
a sub $100 bottle.
Huge score.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's
it.
going to do it for us, guys. Again, go vote for the Scotch Whisky Awards. The voting is open until I believe the first week of November. So you got like 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever
Yep.
to get your votes in. You go vote. If you vote, you can go back and change your mind. If you try something that's maybe on a nomination list, like, oh, actually that one was better, you can go back and change your vote.
Yep.
Whatever. So you got some time to do that. So go check that out. Roy and Ralfy put a lot of time into this, and I think it's going to be something really special in the future.
I agree.
All right.
All right.
That's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to get this podcast a little bit early, check out our Patreons. You can join for $1. Get this podcast before anyone else does. And that's going to do it for us.
That's
have a
it.
good one, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.